The crescent. There's a lot of discussion regarding various methods followed to find crescent to start lunar months, including comments like the science has advanced so much and yet this remains an issue and should be left for science to make determination rather than seeking input from clergy. Everyone seems to have an opinion and supposedly correct. However, I notice that the problem or the question is not constructed properly and therefore the discussions are futile. In this presentation, I have presented moonsighting in very simple format, defining the actual problem rather than just science versus clergy issue. Along the way, I have addressed some myths and common questions. I have provided reference of a detailed document that provides commentary and references on various moonsighting methods in the light of Quran and Hadith. This presentation on its own is not intended to give a solution, rather poses questions for further considerations. These are apparently the different schools of thought about moonsighting, namely the optical moonsighting, astronomical calculation calendar, moonsighting witness in a geographical regional area, and global moonsighting, which relies on the first moonsighting anywhere in the world. This flowchart gives an overview of various methods used for crescent sighting. Let's talk about science. This text is copied from US Navy portal of US Navy Observatory. You see here that the crescent sightings with naked eye as early as 15.5 hours, while with telescopes as early as 12.1 hours have been reliably reported after birth of new moon. This confirms that the new crescent is not immediately visible. The calculation methods also acknowledge this and include some lag in their algorithms. Secondly, involving a number of high nonlinear effects signify factors with indirect relationship to the outcome, hence rendering the calculation methods inaccurate to be followed blindly. This is not a new problem, nor is it localized to Islamic faith only. The algorithms continue to be refined. As Einstein said, the most incomprehensible thing about the universe is that it is comprehensible. Therefore, if one day humans are able to capture all the factors affecting moonsighting and their intricate interrelationships, calculations might become fully accurate. Let us take here an analogy of moonsighting calculation with prayer time calculation. This is specifically for the proponents of the logic that if calculation calendar is used for prayer times, why could it not be used for moonsighting? Before we make it a purely scientific question, we have to define the problem. Until the scientists are told when and what to measure, they cannot do so. Take for example, if as a time, religion has to define parameters for when the time has to be calculated, whether at single or double shadow length. And similarly for Maghrib, should the calculations note time at sunset or at sunset when the redness of the east disappears in the sky. Notwithstanding, even besides these prayer timing differences, there still exists minor variation in calculation methods for all prayers. And to fine-tune these timings too, there are a lot of non-linear factors at play. Just to avoid any calculation errors, many people still keep a buffer of few minutes in prayer timings. We use watch or clock for determining prayer time. Why not use calculation for determining new moon? We can use calculations for determining the new moon only after we determine when and what moon parameters have to be calculated. And if we do so, the calculation criteria has to be adopted with consistency throughout the lunar year, and in such case, minor errors accumulate over months and will give eventually a faulty output. Analogy with Fajr prayer. Sunrise actually occurs before the sun truly reaches the horizon because Earth's atmosphere refracts the sun's image. The amount of refraction varies based on atmospheric conditions, latitude, and longitude. Salat prayer is forbidden during sunrise. When the sun disk appears on the horizon, its actual position is below the horizon. Furthermore, it takes light almost 8 minutes to reach the atmosphere. That is, the sun's actual position might even be different from the disk we observe. If Fajr end time, that is Tulu Aftab, is based on the first light, that is the sunrise, and not sun disk's actual position, then should new crescent be based on the first light, that is the reflected light from the moon, optical moon sighting observation rather than calculations that refer to the position of the moon? Should the determination be based on established observable knowledge, or should it be based on evolving scientific, astronomical, meteorological knowledge? While observing the first crescent of the month, some people comment that the crescent is too big to be the first of the month. Here is an explanation. If the crescent is not sighted on a certain day, it will be big and apparent the next day. There have been recorded errors in the past while just following calculations to do the moon sighting. Here is a newspaper clipping. Again, the calculation methods keep evolving. The official calculation method in Saudi Arabia confirms that 75% of the time crescent will not be visible to the naked eye in the first evening of the lunar month. Here is a hadith regarding global moon sighting. I've tried to refrain from getting in deep explanations and detailed references and interpretation from the Holy Quran or hadith for or against any particular method, with the exception of global moon sighting, since the nature of it is slightly different than optical sighting versus calculation calendar. However, global moon sighting still does have further consideration when viewed together with defining regional moon sighting boundaries. The Quran states about the crescent moons that they are the measurements of time, and that Allah has determined for the moon phases that we may know the number of years in account of time. The question arises, is the moon for measurement of time, or the measurement of time is for the moon? And that, referring to the night and day and the sun and the moon and the stars, Allah says in the Quran, they are signs for people who reason. The question arises, what is a sign for people when the new moon is born and not yet visible? Without sighting, there is no direct observance of moon. It will be limited to select few rather than common person. Here is a link to a document with detailed references regarding each method if you want to pursue further reading on the topic. If you have any comments, please let me know. Thank you.